Hey, welcome listeners to the Health from the Inside Out podcast. Very excited to have a guest here today. We'll get to that in just a minute. Just remember, please, if you like this podcast, please remember to share it with your friends and like it. We have a couple different ways for you to connect to this podcast. Obviously, SoundCloud. You can check it out on the website, terry-porter.com, also on the blog, notthefakeptp.com. So lots of different things. Maybe you're checking it out on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. So please remember to share it with your friends and like it. And be looking for some new things coming up with Health from the Inside Out. We have some leadership retreats coming up in 2018. We also have 2 trips coming up in 2018. We have a trip to South Africa where we partner with Christ Hope International. The link for that will be in the description of the podcast. And we have a trip to Israel in November of 2019. I think I said 2018. Please strike that. It's 2019. We have some leadership retreats. We have a trip to South Africa, and we have a trip to Israel in 2019. Fantastic opportunities to stretch yourself and to always go deeper with Health from the Inside Out. So what does that look like, Health from the Inside Out? It is where you work on your spiritual life, your mental life, your physical life, and your relational life, because all real health happens when we work from the inside out. And that brings us to our guest today, Bethany Rookus. Bethany is a former student of mine, and her family is close friends of mine. In fact, Bethany and I have been on several trips together. Bethany, why don't you say hi?
Hi.
Yeah. And I do forgive Bethany. She is a student at school down in Ann Arbor, and many of my listeners know that I'm a big fan of Notre Dame University, and I think we have a football game coming up. Yeah, next weekend.
This week, actually.
This weekend. And those of you who are listening later, you know when it is coming up. But yeah, our teams will be playing, and I will be rooting for one, and you'll be rooting for the other.
It's okay.
May the best team win, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
I don't have much confidence in my team right now. So.
Well, maybe I feel the same way as you do. All right. So, Bethany, why don't you just share a little bit about your background? You grew up here in Traverse City, Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit further east of here in a town called Fife Lake. But you basically came to school here in Traverse City and grew up here. What are some of your hobbies growing up?
Growing up, I was very involved in dance and the arts. I've always been more into the arts than sports. Even now I'm in choirs. That's like my main thing outside of university. Yeah, I enjoy performing a lot, even though I'm a little nervous behind the screen even right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, being on stage and performing and getting to work in a community of people as a team is, that was what I was involved in.
Good. So back when you were going to Bible Baptist Church with me, you've been on a couple trips. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Now, did you go to Texas with me at all?
I didn't. I did a Bible school in Florida.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. We did a vacation Bible school in Florida with some of our missionaries, and then 2 international trips. Why don't you talk about those trips and what kind of an impact those were on your life? What was the first one you went on?
Yeah, the first one would have been in Italy, where we did a VBS, and then repeated the same sort of layout of a trip in in Mozambique, beginning in South Africa. Yeah, we had definitely learning from like group experiences. You're going in with people that I didn't really know most of the people I was with at first, and you don't know the people that you're working with, and just learning just seeing a team like fall together and everyone has their areas where they thrive the most, and seeing how we complement each other in that and paying attention to that, I think was one of the greatest learning experiences for me, and seeing how you can bless the missionaries while you're over there, just by seeing people like flower and grow in their own areas. You have people of all different ages, all different backgrounds, and I think feeling other people having that confidence in you that you're going to bloom in the area where you are. I think that's my favorite thing about team mission trips like that, and then connecting with just amazing people who have altered their life and moved out to another country, just the amazing stories that you hear from them, and just being inspired by the life they've created, following their God's calling for their life. I think is just hugely inspirational. When I think back to those trips, I just think of how inspired I was by those people.
Yeah, we had a fantastic time there in Italy, connecting with missionaries there, doing vacation Bible school in a city park. That kind of blew our minds that we could actually do that successfully. We're coming from the model that you have to do vacation Bible school at your church property, and the church there didn't really have much church property, so we had to go to the community park. The other thing I remember about that trip was basically walking through communities and praying door to door.
Oh yeah.
Not really connecting with anybody, but we were just praying door to door. And on the front end, I really struggled with that. Like, we're coming over here just to pray, but you said this in your statement earlier. You said we went to be a blessing to our missionaries, and that's exactly what our missionaries want us to do. And that was a learning curve for me. I struggled with that at first. Like, we're flying to Italy, and you just want us to pray? I was like, I can pray back in the States. But that was a huge blessing. He's like, we want to walk through these communities, but we just don't have the time. Well, us coming over there gave him the time, and it gave him the resources to have multiple people. I don't remember how many people were on that trip. I think we had a group size of 15 for the Italy trip. And just walking through the city streets, praying, and seeing the facial expression of our missionary lighten up, like, wow, this is exciting that we get to accomplish this. And I think that they had some benefits from that, where they had connections with people that they would have never connected with had we not did the walking prayer time through the community. How about Mozambique? What did you learn about yourself, or what were some of the struggles that you encountered in Mozambique?
It was definitely harder with the language barrier, I think, there, because there is less English spoken. They speak Portuguese and other native languages. And I remember that being the biggest thing for me to have to get over, just wanting to talk with these kids and just freely listen to them express themselves, and it's just kind of feels like you're a little restrained all the time. And I think a huge learning thing for me was, I feel like there's a tendency for me and a lot of, I think, other people to go into mission trips or something like this and have a blown up idea of yourself and what you can do, and if you can't do this thing, then everything's gonna fail, as if it's all like something that you're doing,
it's dependent on me.
Yeah, it's really if I can't do this, then it's all gonna fall apart. But it really teaches you that God is in control of the situation, and that what needs to be said will be said, and what needs to be heard will be heard. There's no language that can keep that from happening. I think that was a huge thing for me.
So what do you say to somebody who Bethany, they want to go on a mission trip, and they're like, I can't go on a mission trip to Italy, or I can't go to a mission trip to Spain, or I can't go to a mission trip to Mozambique because I don't speak those languages. I speak English. What would you say to them?
I think realistically, that is a thing to think about, and it's difficult. But I also think of how many people that have been on the trip that we went to Mozambique who ended up coming back, learning the language, spending long periods of time there, as a nurse. I think some people did that, or as a teacher. And just thinking about those relationships that are built, don't think that those 2 weeks are all that is there. There's a lasting impact. And even if just one person from that trip comes back and commits themselves, because obviously it's ideal that you would speak the language.
It would be.
You'd be really invested and be there always, but there's always, it's not it's a dead end. I just have these 2 weeks to do this one thing. You never know where your heart's going to be pulled when you're on a trip like that. You could end up being fluent in the language and moving there. You never know. You have to just be open to the opportunities. And
well, even with that, your brother went on the first trip with us to Mozambique, and I remember sitting in the circle, and we just kind of shared, hey, who of you could see yourself doing an extended mission trip or doing full-time Christian service in a foreign country? And I remember several students raised their hand, your brother being one of them, and he ended up coming back and going with those missionaries to Portugal. For how long did he serve in Portugal?
A little under a year.
For almost a full year. And he didn't really know Portuguese.
No, not at all.
He knew Spanish, broken.
Yeah, barely. I don't
barely.
know. Yeah, barely Spanish, yeah.
But it didn't stop him, did it?
No, it didn't.
And he had a fantastic mission trip. And then on the back end of that trip, he met us then in Italy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't fly back to America. He flew then on to Italy and met us there. Actually, he got there 2 days before we got there. So his trip to Mozambique, God got a hold of his heart. He raised his finances to spend a full year almost in Portugal serving at a mission home. and then going on and meeting us in Italy. So, wow. So it can really influence your life, it can change your life, and you don't have to know the language.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about something that you did this summer. Actually, you had two big things going on this summer. Now, are you going into your senior year now?
I am, yeah.
You're going into your senior year, and what's your degree?
My degree is in English.
Okay.
And then we have a combined, it's like language and literature.
Okay.
So I'm interested in going into teaching with that. Yeah.
So we're going to get to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this summer, because you had two things going on this summer. First, you went to Europe. Then talk about your trip to Europe. What was the purpose of it, and what did you learn?
This was with an organization called WOOF. It's kind of funny, but it's a worldwide organization for organic farms. And it's basically just a conglomeration of farms in Germany that that are organic and have kind of these purposes that agree with like this organization for like environmental causes and things, and they're looking for helping hands basically, and it attracts people from all over the world. Pretty much every country in the world has one of these. The U.S. has a really huge one, and basically you're just there working with other people from all over the world. A lot of Germans, but also friends from Israel and friends from Spain and just kind of everywhere. A lot from East Asia. And you're just farming beside them. You're learning things about farm work and construction and cooking and baking, and you're just, and again with the language barrier thing, a lot of times like our common language was English or German sometimes, but none of us spoke those things very well except me with English. So you're really getting to know a lot of people in interesting ways and learning a lot about farming in another language.
Yeah, and again, language barriers there, but you survived.
Yeah.
What was the food like?
Really good.
Really?
Good. And lots of the places were kind of a little more hippie places. They were all vegan, totally like no like coffee, like these kinds of like
what?
Yeah, that was the hardest part. Having no coffee, that was hard to survive. But
did you sneak
I
some?
learned I can do everything. I actually did. There was one place where I was for 2 weeks, and they were very against coffee. But I went to Berlin for the weekend in between, and I bought some instant coffee, and I hid it in my room.
Yes.
So. But I told them about it. I didn't want to like keep
against coffee.
Yeah.
Vegan and against coffee.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
To each their own.
I guess so.
I don't know.
All right, and let's talk about the other trip that you had this summer out to the West Coast. Tell me about this hiking trip.
Yeah. So about 2 weeks after getting back from Germany, it was like full on planning because we were headed to the John Muir Trail, the JMT, which is in basically the most beautiful part of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. It's about the official count is 211 miles, but with side trips and things, it ends up being like 230. And
you did it in how many days?
We did it in 23 days.
So you did basically 10 miles of hiking, and this isn't just like gingerly hiking down a paved trail, is it?
Yeah, this is it's pretty intense. About like 2,000 to 3,000 feet of elevation
every day.
Yeah.
I on a bike. That's I'm a biker, and 2,000 feet of elevation gain is quite a bit. So you're hiking this 10 miles of hiking with 2,000 feet of elevation gain. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's quite extensive. So how do you prepare for that? What was your meals looking like for this trip? What did you pack as far as your personal health? How were you prepared to do this?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of preparation, and even just the permit system you have to do a year in advance and prepare all that, and the flights and things like that. Meals were it's an interesting thing. You end up like not wanting to eat the things that you prepared ahead of time, but it's we had a lot of dehydrating parties basically because you have to like dehydrate all your food, and it's often really expensive to have like the store-bought things, so we were like, we'll do it ourselves, we can do this, like whatever. But so we would have just kitchens full of like, we borrowed everyone's dehydrator from like their grandma and like everything, and lots of, but you make it fun, it's a community thing. Like with me and my hiking partner, we made it interesting and fun, and just cooking all these, like trying to find interesting recipes, and then you get out there and you realize they're not as good as you think they're gonna be. But food is food when you're out there. You just want to get calories in. And then it all has to be very limited in size because weight is a big deal out there. Every resource is a big deal when you have to carry it on your back. And so you're keeping the weight down and getting it to fit inside the bear canister. So a lot of times you were a little bit hungry. So there's only so much you can prepare for before you go. Then you just have to...
Approximately how many calories were you burning a day and eating a day?
I think from what we heard from other people, they say like you're burning about 3,500 to 4,000 on like the average day, and then we were probably eating less than 2,000.
Wow.
So you're
goodness.
for different legs, you have resupplies along the way, so you mail yourself your meals. Yep. And so certain stretches you're like, it's luxurious, you only have like 4 days between your resupplies, so you're like, I can pack all this food,
right.
Like you can actually eat, but then there's one stretch that's like 8 or 9 days, and you have to do 9 days in like a container as big as a large Ziploc container that you have to fill all your food in for the bear canister. So you're hungry at some points, then you gorge yourself, and then you're hungry. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of thinking top ahead here. Do you take a Fitbit with you, or do you wear a Fitbit on this trip or not?
I've never had that. No.
Okay. I'm always curious about how many steps you're getting in on a hiking trip like this.
That's something you can Google, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And what about other technology? You had a cell phone, I would think.
Yes, but we didn't really use it. My hiking partner had a solar charger, but I'm a little like, I wanted to kind of get away from technology more. That's a big thing for me when I'm outdoors. She didn't have that. She didn't share that with me, so that was fine. Everyone's different. You like hike your own hike is what people say. But she had a solar charger and was like using her phone for music and things. But I didn't really. I had my phone just in case you wanted to look something up or something. And so but you don't have service. You don't have.
So she could charge it with the solar charger.
But you're pretty much, you can't use your phone for other than things like listening to podcasts that you've downloaded.
There's probably not a whole lot of cell service in that area anyway.
Not at all. Not at all. There's none.
Okay.
So.
What struggles did you have on the trip? What was difficult?
Mm-hmm. I would say it's something, there's like a lot going on. There's like, you're dealing with yourself. You're really like unattached to a lot of things that you're used to in normal life. You're detached from the things that you find comfort in most of the time. So you have like, I would say there's a lot of like you're paying attention to the personal a lot. And when you're hiking with a partner and with a community, like even if you're hiking solo, you're surrounded by a community of people. So you have the community going on, you have all these things going in yourself, you have all these different like areas that you are being, I guess, like worked on and pushed while you're out there. So personally, I would say for me, I guess I don't want to, it's not so much, I guess, looking at it like it was a struggle, but like a thing that developed and I learned from along the way. I think like, I guess personal body image is a big thing, I think, for women, especially like in the hiking community. I think a lot of us share a background, I guess, in like struggling with that.
Sure.
And I think that's a huge thing that I felt developing along the way, just as your confidence grows and like day by day you see yourself like setting goals and accomplishing them as best you can. And eventually when you like hit the summit, the end is the summit of Mount Whitney. And I think when you see yourself up there, just seeing what you have done physically, the like what you've overcome and like what your body is able to do with itself, you're just kind of like amazed. Like no matter how you felt along the way, like your blisters, or you're having blisters like crazy, and you're having medical issues and altitude sickness and all these things, like it's like you kind of forget that all of that happened, all those struggles, and you're like, look what I can like do with my body. And it's such a feeling of like confidence,
right?
I can't even like describe. It's so amazing.
So did you ever get to a point where you wanted to quit on this trip?
I think between us, and like I said, there was also, you're with a partner, and that's like adding another element of, you have two individual people with their own personal things going on. And we had differences along the way. That always happens. I think we had differences about things of pace and like ideas of like miles per day and like these, and like the differences in goals. And when you're trying to accomplish a major goal together, your small goals have to be aligned kind of, and sometimes they're not exactly. And you have different ideas of like when we should rest and do, and things that seem small, but when you're out there, like it's a big deal, like setting aside time to rest and things like that. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing, and sometimes those don't always line up, and you really learn to I guess resolve those things together and decide on a new goal together. But I forgot the original.
I mean, this is a 23-day hike.
Yeah.
Did you ever want to quit?
Yeah. So that's where I was going with that. And there were times where it would almost seem like it wasn't worth it, where like those small goals like aren't aligned, and we're like maybe like one of us should go off and the other should keep going. Like there were discussions about that, and in the end though, when you share that greater goal, I think that's like what keeps it together. Like we may disagree about this and this, but like we want to accomplish this. We've invested, so like I said, it's a lot of planning. We've invested so much in this, and we want to meet that, so we'll do whatever we can do to meet that final goal. When you're both really invested in it that way, I think quitting is like something that is mentioned, but you're like, you just can't do it. And we're both very stubborn people, so luckily. So we were
how did that work
quitting
out?
Was going to be an option for us. But
how did that work out interpersonally, being both of you stubborn?
I think, you definitely learn something about conflict resolution, which I think everyone in the world could benefit.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And there's no way to, I think, practice it better than going on climbing a mountain, or multiple mountains with someone who has a similar personality to you, I think. So you definitely learn to express yourself clearly and listen better. I could have done a lot better listening, things like that. But as it goes on more and more, you have to be very clear about like what you want, and you learn to, I think a lot of like conflict comes from like not really understanding where the other person is coming from, and learning to have that really like healthy, clear communication. And I saw that growing definitely as we went on, and you get to know the person more too. You're not, you're having all these conversations and learning so much about them and their history and their like dreams and what they want, and the more you talk about that, the more you understand them, and I think that helps you to be able to resolve those things.
Did you journal any of your time out there?
Not enough, and that's what everyone says. We started out like having journal breaks, but you really are like just, you grind yourself to the ground like every day, and by the end of the day you're just like, I don't feel like writing even. Like putting the like effort out to like make a journal entry seems like climbing another mountain sometimes. But we occasionally did, and when I came back I wrote down the memories and things, and when you look at pictures, it helps to remember. But I wish I had done more, especially as someone who loves writing. So
did you blog about this? Do you plan to write any blog post about this?
I haven't yet, and I don't know.
Okay.
A lot of hikers have blogs, but like I said, I'm not as much into the technology thing. So
okay. Well, if you ever do, please let us know, because I'd love to read more about this.
For sure. Yeah.
So let's get back into teaching now, because before we went on the air, one of the things you brought up was kind of what the whole theme of my business is, health from the inside out, and you're sharing with me some things that I find very interesting. And you want to get into teaching, but you want to do it with a little different dynamic. Kind of talk about that. What's your vision of teaching?
Yeah. We were basically talking about future goals and how to incorporate what I've learned into like my life goals. And definitely as someone who wants to be a teacher, not sure yet exactly like in what capacity that would look like, at what level, but I think, and this is something that I talked about with other people on the trail who are also teachers, would talk about how they try to incorporate getting into the outdoors, and especially unplugging like from technology and things like you pretty much are forced to do out there, as a way of getting students involved in learning, and whether it's from the actual like land that you're in, like geology, that kind of thing, or just I study English, that's my calling, and just studying poetry, I think, in the outdoors, and studying literature in the outdoors is so different from studying it in like a stuffy classroom. So just incorporating trips and things, I think teachers who invest in the students and do that, it's such a huge benefit. You see it from, I think back to teachers who, even just little things that we would do, studying outside, like it just made such a difference. And I remember those lessons, and I don't remember a lot of the lessons from high school or middle school or anything. You remember those kinds of things when you're really doing hands-on work, I think, and when you're outside.
Good. So, well, Bethany, our time is gone. Big fan. I love hearing these stories, and I connect with your dad quite a bit, and he's always sharing stories about what you're doing next or what you got planned next. So I'm excited about what you have planned for next summer and in the future. You have some other goals. Real quick, some more hiking goals. What are a couple of those big hiking goals you have? Yeah,
ideally being a triple crowner and doing the 3 major hikes of the U.S. I think I'm really drawn to U.S. hikes.
Okay, so what would that be?
Land here. That would be the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide. But I'm a little nervous about the Continental Divide because I have a fear of grizzly bears. So I have to get over that first.
I heard you can wear bells on your toe, on your shoes, and that kind of distracts them.
Yeah, that's supposed to help, I guess. But
or just tells the bears where to go.
Yeah, right. A dinner bell.
The dinner bell. That's right. Well, hey, guest, thank you for checking out our podcast. Bethany, thank you for being with us. You're off to school here in another week to finish up your school year. Is senior year? Is this the last year? Or do you have to go back and do some master's work?
sometime in the future, probably master's, but
not right away.
Putting off
Yes,
first.
put it off.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you had enough school. Good. Well, Bethany, thank you for joining us. And remember to like and share and check out our other resources with Health from the Inside Out. And remember, your health is dependent on how you take care of yourself. So thank you so much, Bethany, for joining us. And we will get back to a podcast next month.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.